Thank you, Professor Datta, for the introduction and for the chance to present this paper. Good day, good morning, everyone. I hope you can all hear and see me. I hope you can see the slide. There isn't a lot of time, so yeah, thank you for confirming. I'll try to be brief. Shall I go over time? Please do remind me, and I'll make sure to stick to the time allocated. Essentially, just as a brief introduction and background to the coming into being of this article, I'm presenting on behalf also of my co-author, Gary King, with whom we work together for his dissertation within a master's degree program in digital transformation. The study, essentially, that he conducted became a sample for the entire cohort of students, and also it's quoted extensively and added to every iteration of the course that I chair on research methods. So that's a bit of a background of this. It's primarily based on Gary's work and research, which, in fact, gives him the first signature of the article, and that I'm presenting today, because also for time differences, him being in South Africa, it's easier for me to present it. So we're looking essentially at an article on transaction cost theory and organizational ambidexterity in connection with a platform that was experimented with in the context of a developing country, where obviously already, the aspect of logistics, generally speaking, can represent a substantial cost, especially as we move into the e-tailer and domain, which, of course, is now well established, but this has increased certain emphasis on the importance of supply chain and facing competition for cost reduction. Businesses, of course, also in South Africa have looked into digital platforms to optimize logistics efficiency. And so the idea basically here is to understand indeed the role the logistics plays in the case of this organization, and the benefits, potential and actual, of digital platforms introduction. So the idea is to also appreciate this in the context of an emerging country, an emerging economy, emphasizing, of course, indeed, whether digital platforms, for instance, can lower the route to market costs, any challenges faced, and how organizational ambidexterity essentially influence the successful implementation of digital platforms. Essentially, what we're looking at is the use of transaction cost theory to better understand these dynamics and to understand also the interactions between agents, between people, in order to understand also what was being done for leveraging this network effects. Of course, transaction cost theory is established field of knowledge. The traditional view of transaction cost theory was introduced by Williamson. There have been, of course, a lot of studies since the seminal articles and publications of the 80s. But the idea, indeed, is to understand how transaction cost theories allows us to study further these efficiencies, or vice versa, in the context of digital platforms, looking at the transactional dynamics, so that helps us establish also the way in which we can establish accountability for these transactions, particularly in emerging markets, where, of course, we're looking at transaction costs being critical. Transaction costs that indeed would give us a certain theoretical prediction that typically when we introduce a new platform or a new technology, we see a reduction in transaction costs. However, this has not necessarily been the case here. And the way in which we've done this was to look into the domain of ambidexterity, of organizational ambidexterity. So What this is about is essentially understanding the balance between what these digital platforms enable on one hand, but also what supports the development of digital platforms as well. So it's not just about throwing in the platform, it's about understanding also the organizational intertwining of, let's say, the new technology with leadership qualities and core business processes. So, and this was an essential perspective for us to really see how traditional business models were being reshaped thanks to the opportunities offered by the digital platform during the process of digital transformation. This was an in-depth case study. There were 9 in-depth, semi-structured interviews. There was a lot of effort to do the thematic coding of these interviews because, you know, these were very detailed and lasted several hours. And the focus, of course, was precisely to understand these dynamics that we have introduced. And this, of course, was also, let's say, part of Gary King's work. So he had access to the key individuals that were involved in the overseeing of the development and later also the evaluation of this platform. He was also involved in every step of the process. So he had, let's say, access to very critical and important information on the, let's say, case study. And so basically what we found was essentially that there were 2 critical stages. There was one part where basically the business plan, the new digital platform was introduced. The objective was to streamline operation, to reduce cost, to address key inefficiencies, to optimize transportation costs, to enhance coordination. So all of these were the main ideas. But this didn't happen in a vacuum. Basically, there was also, say, some initial benefits that were also increasing the transparency, for instance, of bidding for contracts, of the involvement of transportation service providers. But there were some complexities involved as well. One of these was actually system integration. It was very difficult to, at the beginning, at least connect the ERP system used by this company with a new digital platform. And there was a lot of coordination that had to take place between the IT department of the company and the platform provider. And what was done was also to understand what was necessary to ensure a buy-in from the key individuals of the company. And so they did some pilot testing, which aimed to identify and up to a point actually successfully addressed, let's say, what were the key potential technical but also political issues involved. But of course, it was, let's say, if on one hand there were outcomes and benefits perceived, and these were indeed actually, let's say, delivering some results that were along the lines of what was intended, there was a persistent challenge, which was a market resistance, which actually led to a series of risks in cash flows in the business-to-business model that they were implementing. And of course, this had to do essentially with some technical issues. So there were deficiencies in software, and these affected seriously the capability of integrating with the existing ERP system. There was inconsistent internet connectivity in certain regions, so the data availability was scarce. And even if there was an investment from the company to mitigate this, to enhance mobile data solutions, if there was no coverage in some part of that geography that seriously affected the ability of the platform to collect the data and use the data effectively. And on the political side, there was resistance to change. So staff was actually, resisting, irrespective of some very expensive training sessions that were actually taking place. Beside all of this, eventually the platform was implemented. There were some improvements in logistics efficiency, but let's say there was an inability to apply organizational ambidexterity in the end, and the focus on legacy issues without adequate ongoing support to develop and sustain the platform eventually led to the platform producing some benefits. But then the platform was actually closed down, and there was a backlash that basically went to restore the ERP system and its former utilization because it was apparently more accurate eventually. And so this was something that points to the importance of better understanding across different geographies what challenges might exist in relation to the introduction of these systems.
2 minutes to go, just 2 minutes.
Right. Thank you. Yes, I'm almost done. Particularly in a traditional logistical environment where there is a significant administrative burden, it's important to understand how data can be managed consistently and rapidly. But this needs to be, of course, supported by processes, by individuals involved, and also by the efficacy of technical solutions that can indeed bring the data in the system as relevant. Otherwise, it becomes not effective. So in conclusion, it's true that on one hand, there was an initial part where there was a transformation, and this was promising, but there were some unique challenges in emerging markets that had to be also considered. And this idea of ambidexterity indeed supports a more nuanced understanding of, let's say, not just the technical challenges, but also the organizational issues and the business issues as well. And of course, we'd be certainly more than happy in the future to see this, let's say, approach being tested further also with additional case studies that can also better highlight the dynamics of sustainability in the utilization and implementation of these platforms as well. So that's all for me. I hope I didn't take too much more of the allocated time. So one more time, thank you.